I was carrying textbooks in one hand and my family's survival in the other. Life does not always announce when it will become heavy. Sometimes the weight appears quietly, in the curve of a backpack strap, in the thin envelope from the school office, in the silence that follows a parent's tired sigh. For 17-year-old Daniel Reyes, school was never just school. It was a bridge between today's struggles and tomorrow's hope. Each morning he carried his textbooks like any other student, but his heart carried something else, the fragile survival of his family. This is the story of a teenager learning that strength is not about perfection, but persistence. It is about how one young person learned to balance homework with responsibility, exhaustion with love, and fear with courage. 1. The morning wait. Daniel left their narrow apartment before sunrise, careful not to wake his little sister Maya. His backpack felt heavier than it should have, stuffed with math books and history notes, but the true weight was invisible, the overdue rent notice folded inside his jacket pocket. His mother had fallen asleep at the kitchen table again, paycheck calculator beside her. At school, other students talked about weekend trips and new phones. Daniel listened with half an ear while rewriting formulas in the margins of old notebooks. He worked nights at a grocery store, stocking shelves until his arms shook, then studied on the bus ride home. Every problem he solved felt like a promise to his family that someday things would be different. 2. The hidden ledger. At lunch, Daniel never bought food from the cafeteria. He unfolded the same peanut butter sandwich every day and pretended not to notice the looks. Inside his locker, behind a chemistry book, he kept a tiny notebook. It wasn't homework, it was their survival ledger. Electricity, rent, groceries, medicine for Maya's asthma. Sometimes the numbers refused to work. He'd stare at the page until his eyes burned, trying to make impossible sums become possible. A guidance counselor once asked why he looked tired all the time. He smiled and said, "Too much studying." The truth was heavier than any textbook, but he believed that if he could just endure long enough, the future would open like a door that had been locked too long. 3. After-school rush. The final bell never meant freedom for Daniel. It meant he had exactly 12 minutes to reach the bus stop, change into his store uniform in the restroom, and clock in on time. The grocery store smelled of cleaning spray and tired hope. His manager, Mr. Cole, noticed the circles under Daniel's eyes but said nothing. Daniel stacked cans until the aisles looked perfect, then helped customers carry bags to their cars. He always walked home instead of taking the bus, saving the fare for Maya's inhaler refill. One evening, as rain soaked through his thin jacket, he wondered how long he could keep going. Then he remembered his mother's smile when the lights stayed on another month and kept walking. 4. Maya's questions. Maya waited up every night, even when her eyes struggled to stay open. She asked about school projects and teachers she had never met, soaking in every detail like stories from another world. "Will I go to college like you?" she asked once, holding her inhaler like a tiny microphone. Daniel laughed softly. "You'll go farther." But after she fell asleep, he sat on the edge of her bed, worrying. What if he couldn't protect her dreams? What if the math never added up? Still, each morning he rewrote his notes, memorized new formulas, and stepped back into the day. Hope wasn't something he felt, it was something he practiced. 5. The test. Midterms arrived like a storm. Daniel studied on the bus, in the store break room, and in the apartment hallway while his mother rested. When the exam paper landed on his desk, his hands trembled. Halfway through, his phone vibrated in his pocket, a message from his mother about a notice from the landlord. He closed his eyes for 3 seconds. Then he finished the test with everything he had left. Weeks later, the principal called him into the office. He expected trouble. Instead, there was a letter, a scholarship, full tuition. He reread the words until they blurred. It was not a miracle. It was math, sweat, love, and refusing to quit. 6. The night shift promise. Daniel's first semester at the university didn't feel like victory. It felt like starting another race already tired. His classes were larger, the campus louder, but the pressure at home had not vanished. Tuition was covered, but groceries were not. So he kept the night shifts, trading sleep for stability. Sometimes he reviewed lecture notes in the stockroom, balancing a clipboard in one hand and a textbook in the other. When customers asked why he looked so serious, he shrugged. They didn't know he was rewriting his family's future between cereal boxes and cleaning supplies. Every exhausted step was a promise that Maya would never count pills the way he once counted coins. 7. Mother's quiet pride. His mother never said much about the sacrifices he made, but Daniel noticed the way she folded his work shirts with extra care. One evening, she placed a small framed photo on his desk, a picture of the three of them taken years earlier at a park, before everything became difficult. "I keep this so I remember we already survived the hardest parts," she said. Daniel stared at the photo long after she left the room. It reminded him that their story was not built on loss, but on endurance. The apartment was still small, the budget still tight, but something had shifted. They were no longer only trying to survive, they were learning how to live. 8. Maya's first dream. The day Maya brought home her first school award, she burst through the door like a firework. Daniel was halfway through reheating leftovers, but he dropped the plate to hug her. "For science," she said proudly. "I want to be a doctor." The word doctor echoed in the kitchen like a future being born. Daniel realized that dreams grow when they are protected, not by wealth, but by effort and belief. That night he helped her design a study chart, smiling at how serious she looked with her colored markers. He saw himself in her concentration, the same determination just beginning its journey. 9. The weight finally changes. Years later, Daniel stood at his graduation ceremony, feeling the familiar pull on his shoulder, but this time it was a cap and gown, not a backpack full of worry. His mother and Maya cheered from the crowd, their voices louder than anything he had ever heard. He realized then that he was still carrying two things in his hands, education and responsibility, but the weight had changed. It no longer bent his back, it lifted his family forward. The journey had not been about escaping struggle. It had been about transforming it into purpose. The balance that built a life. Daniel did not drop his responsibilities the day he got the scholarship. He still worked. He still counted every dollar, but the load was lighter because hope had finally become real. Years later, he would remember those days not as hardship, but as training proof that endurance shapes character more than comfort ever could. Moral of the story. True strength is quiet. It shows up in early mornings, tired eyes, honest effort, and love that refuses to surrender. When you carry others in your heart, even the heaviest burdens become bridges to something better.